Coming up on the last episode of the year of Bobcat Breakdown, the women's golf team has won the MAAC tournament and reached the NCAAs. We'll show you how they got there.
And the men's lacrosse team has won the MAAC regular season and has a shot at conference perfection.
Plus, we look back on the entire year of Quinnipiac athletics.
All of that and so much more coming at you right now on Bobcat Breakdown. Welcome to the final episode of Bobcat Breakdown of this year. We've got a lot to go over in this special
Pat
1 hour
Cassidy
episode. I'm Rob Ciambra.
I'm James Anderson. That's right, Rob. Lots of content for our final show. Let's kick things off with men's lacrosse. They just clinched being able to host the MAAC tournament at home. So, what do you think hosting is going to do for this team?
I think it does a lot. I mean, Quinnipiac, they're sort of notorious for their home field. You know, a lot of opponents don't like it. You know, there's been complaints about it in the past just because it's a different style of turf. But they're used to it. This is what they play on, you know, for all their home games. So they're used to it. This is good for them that they get to play on their home field. Plus, they don't have to travel anywhere. So that saves the time. They walk over from the dorms, from the rec center, you know, where the locker rooms are at. So it's easier for them. They're playing on their home field. You know, it's just... And with an athlete, too, you know, it puts them sort of in that mindset that they get to stay at home. It puts them in good spirits already. They've succeeded, so they've had so much success this season. So I think that it just does wonders for them.
I think that hosting is honestly everything to them. Because as you mentioned, they are known as a team that loves to play at home. They have a lot of success at home, and they have had that in recent years, and they're known for that. But I think last year, when they were the second seed, they ended up losing in the conference championship. They had to go on the road to Marist this year in the regular season. On the road at Marist, had to go to double overtime. They were able to come away with the win, but Marist, I think, is the one team that's really standing between them and a MAAC championship, and going to Marist's house would have possibly given Marist the edge. I do think that them hosting is going to swing that in their favor, and that is a very big deal for this team.
Definitely, I agree. You know, being on home field, you know, they mentioned they traveled to Marist last year. Like I said, it's the road trip. You know, sometimes it could be a killer, no matter what time of the year it is, whether it's the beginning of the season or it's the end of the season, the postseason. So it's definitely, I think it does wonders for this team. You know, for them to host the MAAC tournament. But they still have one regular season game left. They have a chance to go undefeated in MAAC play with the game against Manhattan this coming Saturday. You know, what does that say about this team going undefeated in conference play this season?
I think that it's a very big feat. With lacrosse, there's a lot less conference games in general. They only have 6 conference games on the year. But lacrosse is men's lacrosse is the only sport where you have a team like Detroit in your conference. They had to travel to Detroit. They're a spring sport. They had to play in the snow in Detroit. So they travel a lot more, even though they have a smaller season. So I think that does kind of add to the toughness and mental toughness for a team to be able to go undefeated. I think that they're going to do it because they're playing Manhattan coming up, and Manhattan is not necessarily the strongest team in the MAAC. They've had a terrible year. So they are just clicking on all cylinders right now. Their offense is moving. They're spacing the ball very well. They're attacking the net. They have a bunch of players who can just take over a game if they get kind of covered, isolated outside. And they're just solid defensively with Jack Brust at the helm of that in net for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. This team, you know, taking on a not-so-strong team in Manhattan, I think it does wonders for them, you know, to also go undefeated in conference play. It just shows how dominant they've been this year, how much of a great year that they've had. But they've, you know, it's obviously it's a team effort, but what players for this team have sort of stood out to you in making them so dominant this year?
Brian Feldman in particular has really stood out. He's been, I think, for 3 consecutive weeks now, the MAAC Offensive Player of the Week. It's an unbelievable achievement. You also got players like Foster Cuomo who have come in and done a fantastic job, and to really stepping in and adding just another offensive weapon to this team, making it even tougher for teams to cover them. It spaces them out. You can't now double team Feldman as they might have been able to do in last season. You got a couple of really solid good freshmen who come in, and then you have a couple of really good sophomores who are just continuing to progress, and they really are just a wagon on the offensive end of the field.
I'm surprised you mentioned Ryan Keenan, 32 points on the season. I feel like he's been such a force for this Bobcats lacrosse team. You know, I feel like he's the main reason why they've done so well this season.
As a senior, Ryan Keenan definitely has been a big reason why they have done so well this year, but I also think that he has been helped out by Feldman. They also both create a lot more space. So,
well, James, we mentioned that this
Yep.
team has done so well and what players have stepped up, but why don't we send it over to men's lacrosse analyst Pat Cassidy on the touchscreen, who goes more in depth about what specifically the Bobcats have done well.
Hey guys, Pat Cassidy here with a breakdown of why men's lacrosse has been so good this year and how they clinched their first MAAC regular season title. So we're going to start off here when they're on offense. They're just setting up in their plays. You can see here, they're starting to spread the field out. The Canisius guys are still figuring out who to cover, where to go. You see in the middle here, you have 1, 2, 3 guys still talking to each other, figuring out who to cover, where to go, what's going on. So they're going to take really quick advantage of this. They get the ball behind the net, and now look at this. As they spread out, you see one man here in the middle, Drew D'Antonio, the one man in the middle. As a result, you have all of this open field space to work with. All of that. They're going to take very clear advantage of that, as you'll see in a few seconds. Whoops. Draw. Clear. Now, Feldman with the ball is going to get it up top to the point. Anthony Crescetti, as I said before, huge space to work with. They're confused. You have 1, 2, 3 defensemen sliding in, trying to stop him from getting inside, but unfortunately, with all the space he had to work with, it just does not work. He rips a shot, easy goal, up quick, 1-0. Now, this is a recurring theme. They spread the field out. They move the ball quickly, but they don't rush it. Quickly and rushing, two very separate things. You're going to see it here off the inbound from play reset, up point again. See, they're taking their time. They're moving slowly, but they're getting balls off fast. Here in the corner, now this is just a great individual effort. Gets the ball behind to Brian Feldman, sophomore, leading goal scorer on the team, second leading goal scorer in the MAAC, and just right in the middle to freshman Foster Cuomo. Absolutely outstanding effort by all of them. As you can see here very clearly, just awesome individual efforts. And shot from the point. Very hard to stop that regardless of what defense you are. Let's take another look. End of the previous play. See here, he's carrying it in the middle. So the entire defense, you can just see almost the entire defense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. That's the entire defense. They are all focusing on this one player with the ball. Now, you're going to see the results of this very quickly. It's going to have a guy cut in through here to the middle and just rip an absolute blast of a shot off. And like I said, from the point, it's difficult to stop that shot no matter what sport you're in. That was as a result of 6 defensemen focusing on one guy down low. As a result, this team has been doing all the little things right. They are spreading the field out, moving the ball around. They're not rushing it. They're taking their time but moving fast as well. They're just causing absolute havoc for the opposing team's defense. And at the same time, at the other end of the field, Jack Brust anchoring this defense. Same deal. He's moving the ball fast, getting it upfield. That, combined with great individual efforts from the likes of Feldman, Keenan, and Vitelli, this team is a very potent force, and I expect a very deep run into the MAAC, even the championship. Back to you at the desk.
You can see the rest of Pat's analysis on Q30television.com.
And we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, we will show you the rapid reactions from the women's golf team following their seeding announcement in the NCAA tournament.
And we'll hit the diamond as the softball team is just outside of a MAAC tournament spot with 10 conference games remaining.
And we'll run over to the other diamond and learn the ins and outs of catching from Lou Iannotti.
All that and still so much more to come. Don't change that channel. Bobcat Breakdown will be back in a flash.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at a sheer sensation.
The freshmen this year have stepped in and really just eliminated that problem, doing the right plays at the right time.
I mean, it certainly seems like an uphill battle for this team, but Tricia Fabi is one of the best coaches at this university.
Bobcats hosting Arizona State. We'll start with this power play.
But she's strong. Good Lord, I saw her lifting one time. She could squat 3 of me. Like,
oh, well, 7 of me then.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's. Good evening and welcome to Sports Pause.
In the end, we're here to win the championship this year.
Jess Fontaine now has that. She's going to take a ripper off the post, but she's going to come back.
And my number one, hold your applause, Bobcats fans, is Quinnipiac.
All right, Victoria, you know what time it is. It's top 5 plays of the week.
My favorite time.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. After winning its first ever MAAC tournament championship this past weekend, the Quinnipiac women's golf team automatically qualified for the NCAA tournament and was placed in the Bryan, Texas Regional. Our associate producer Reagan Martin caught up with some members of the team following the selection show yesterday.
I'm Reagan Martin here with Coach O'Connor from the women's golf. Coach, you just found out that your team is going to regionals in Bryan, Texas. What do you think of this course? Was this what you were hoping for?
Well, any of the 4 courses was going to be great for us. We're excited about going to Texas. We've never played there, obviously. This is all new to us and very exciting.
Now, this is a course that they were even talking about on ESPN, how specialist courses, it's very well kept. Is this something your team really has to look forward to, playing on MAAC courses?
Well, we don't see anything that's going to compare to what we're going to play on. So, we're able to play on anything. It's going to be new, and I'm sure they'll do fine.
Jen, you just found out that you will be going to Texas for regionals. How excited are you?
Beyond excited. I think it's so well deserved for our team, and especially being a senior and getting to experience it one last time with these girls is an amazing feeling.
Now, you're the captain of this team. What is it like taking a team, winning the MAAC, and going to regionals? This is a historic moment for Quinnipiac. What does it take to do that?
Well, I've been captain for 3 years, so I think I've really kind of grown into the role over my time here, especially with my coaches, and then the girls have just gotten better and better golf-wise. So it's easy to lead a team that's so good, you know what I mean? So I think just having these freshmen that have really made all of us more competitive has helped. And then in general, our team spirit, I think we went into the tournament knowing we could win, and with that confidence, we just succeeded by, I think, 11 shots. So I think it's one of those things where we just never lost our focus and played our game, and it turned out for the best.
You just found out that you'll be playing in Bryan, Texas. How excited are you to be playing down in Texas?
I think it's going to be an amazing experience. It's something that we really, really wanted to achieve, and hopefully we go out there and show that we're very strong and we do our best.
Now I have a couple questions just to find out how you kind of got here. You grew up in Bolivia, am I correct? And then, so we want to know, how did you pick Quinnipiac? What made you?
I think this is one of the decisions that I've made in my life, and it's totally one of the best ones because I took in consideration the girls, the school, and everything, and I immediately felt like I was at home. My teammates are turned into family within a few weeks, and my coach is someone I look up to because he's amazing, and it's just great.
Now, golf is a very intense sport, and like you said, a team will feel like your family. You spend a lot of time with these girls. What started picking up your interest in golf?
I started golf because of my brother, and right when I started, he stopped, and it was something where when winning is something you like, it becomes a routine, and then that's how it kept on going.
I think just sticking to our practice as we do. I mean, I think that just playing will help. I think we're going in with high expectations in the sense of the experience aspect, but we know that these teams are amazing, and just to be near them is such an honor. So I think just sticking to our game, playing as we know, not a lot we could do in this short amount of time, but just sticking to our practice routine will help.
You have placed in the top 10 4 times this season, and 3 of those times being in first place. What do you think you have that gives you a little step above your other competitors?
The hard work we put in every single day. We wake up at 7 a.m. every single morning, and we take our practice so seriously that I honestly think that we can't do bad because of all the work we put in. So
Thanks, Reagan. The Quinnipiac softball team split 2 doubleheaders this past weekend at home. Sydney Roby pitched a 1-hit shutout in Game 1 against Fairfield on Saturday, and the Bobcats won 1-0. The Stags would take the second game 2-1, allowing just 1 hit from the Bobcats. On Sunday, the Bobcats once again took the first game of the doubleheader. Miranda Magana hit a walk-off double as the Bobcats took Game 1 3-2 over the Iona Gales. But the Bobcats once again struggled in the second game, falling 7-0 to the Gales. The game scheduled for today at Holy Cross has been canceled due to inclement weather. Quinnipiac has 11 regular season games left, 10 of them against MAAC opponents. James, the Bobcats currently sit in 8th in the MAAC, 2 places out of a spot in the postseason tournament. Do you think they will move up and make the tournament?
I think for me it's a coin toss. When you're playing just below 500 ball, like throughout up to this point in the season, they're 4-6 in the MAAC. They got a lot of games left to play. It's going to be very difficult. I think that they need to start kind of rolling some of these wins together. They've been very hot and cold all year long. They've just been back and forth. Last weekend, they went on the road for 2 doubleheader series. They swept the first one, I think, and then they were swept in the second day. And this weekend, they once again split the weekend, 2 wins, 2 losses, splitting each series. If you're going to play 500 softball, I'm not entirely sure that's going to be enough to get you into that 6th spot. You got to be trying to get past that one team that's above you. Just one team right now. They're in that 7th spot, and I think they just need to kind of string some of these wins together.
Well, Bobcats, I think they can make it, but the defense really has to tighten up. From what I've noticed from watching this team this season, there's been a lot of errors, and they're just like these little things like throwing errors, throwing the ball away. And it's as simple as taking a quick look around before throwing the ball, making sure you're hitting the cutoffs, little throws down, across the diamond. It's little things like that. The pitching hasn't been the greatest, but it certainly isn't terrible. Sometimes the hitting's there, sometimes it's not. So the hitting certainly is to pick up as well. But I think it can. They've been hot and cold, yes. There's no question about that. But I do think they have a chance, but it is going to come down to them tightening up the defense and hitting just a little more.
And we mentioned how they've been hot and cold this year. Why do you just think they've been so inconsistent? What is it about this team that's kind of producing that?
Honestly, your guess is as good as mine with that. I don't know. I thought, losing Jordan Palucci and a few other players to graduation last year certainly has hurt this team. But I didn't think that it would have this effect on them. I still think they have a good squad, so it sort of surprises me that they're flip-flopping so many games, going win-loss here and there. I feel like they're good enough to string together a few wins. I don't know if maybe it's the confidence in this team, but I really don't know. It's just as I'm confused by it.
And we talked on Breakdown, in the shows over the past few weeks as we've dived into softball. They only really have 2 starting pitchers. It gets to a point where if they're going 2 days in a row starting games, your arm's going to get tired. You just can't It
Definitely.
makes it very difficult to build momentum and keep momentum when you're going right back to the same person with a tired arm the next day. You just can't pitch as effectively. Roby threw a shutout in the first series this weekend. Second game, didn't really have all of her stuff. So they really need their offense to really step up to kind of account for that. Their highest run total in a game this weekend was 3, and it was in a walk-off. It had to go to extras. So their offense needs to step up to help kind of compensate in those games when their pitchers' arms are tired. But they need to find ways to get their pitchers rest. I just don't think they have a big enough staff to get that to happen.
I agree. Well, we enter break number 2 of our end of the season hour-long special of Bobcat Breakdown. Still so much to come, including a tutorial with baseball's catcher Lou Iannotti.
We also look back at some of the other teams and other seasons, including the men's hockey team and women's rugby team.
You don't want to miss any of this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Qcash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Quinnipiac baseball took 2 of 3 games from Manhattan in a series this past weekend, winning 5-3, losing 17-11, but winning the final game 10-4. They improved to 6-6 in MAAC play, James, 16-22 overall. So not certainly a decent start for this team, a bit better than the beginning of the season. But what style of play does the baseball team need to continue improving and to go back to the MAAC tournament?
I think when they came home, they kind of got back to their foundation. They were able to maybe get some practice days that they might not have been able to get as consistently when they were traveling a lot early on in the year. So for them, I think they got back to playing small ball. They got back to being on the same page of strategy, figuring out getting just one base over at a time, just working on just trying to get the guy into scoring position, getting from second to third to home, just piece by piece by piece, not necessarily going for just hitting it out of the ballpark. They don't necessarily have a lot of power on this team, and that's the way they need to play to be successful. And I think that they were able to kind of get back to that when they were able to maybe come home, practice, have some nice team meetings to kind of get themselves focused again.
See, I agree with that, but I also think that some of the things have improved since the beginning of the season. I think everyone was a little cold to start the season in terms of the hitting and the pitching, everything all around. But they need a few games to get warmed up, as with when any season starts. And I think that's what happened. They got those few bad games, really out of the way. And they started playing better. They didn't necessarily win some of those games, but they continually improved. And I think that's how they got to where they are right now. And I think we're going to see a consistent improvement from this team, and I think definitely see him return to the MAAC tournament, improve that, not just the conference record, but the overall record, obviously. The hitting has been there, I think. It could pick up, it could always improve, I think, with no matter how well a team's doing, that can always improve. The pitching certainly could use a little more support, some, like softball, a few careless errors here and there, but that's going to happen because it's baseball. It just happens, but certainly everything could tighten up a little bit, but I do see a consistent climb with this team.
Yeah, and when you really look at the beginning of the season to where they are now in terms of the start of MAAC play to the second, kind of more recently with MAAC play, what do you think the difference is for them? What has caused the change in playing so poorly to now playing so well?
Well, I think you hit on it with the small ball, but it's also, I think, just the hitting itself. Like, the offense has just continually gotten better. There have been more hits, guys are taking better pitch, taking more bad pitches instead of swinging at them, grounding out, even striking out. The hitting has just improved. The eyesight of these batters. I'm just seeing consistent, improvement, especially with Lou Iannotti. I think his hitting started out, it doesn't start terrible, but it still has improved. Especially with some of the other players as well, Matthew Batten included.
Yeah, for me, I think it all stems from them coming home. Honestly, they started off the year with 6 straight MAAC road games with road non-conference games mixed in the weeks in between those weekends. That's just a lot for a team, especially when they start off the season playing all those tournaments down in the South, trying to play against those tougher, bigger conference schools to make sure that they kind of get ready for when they get to MAAC opponents, and they're not necessarily as strong as the schools they've been playing up to that point. For them, they were 1-5 in the MAAC in those first 6 games. Since coming home, and they played 2 series in a row now, they're 5-2. For me, I think it's all about comfortability, especially with those pitchers. You saw that the pitchers came back, and once they got on their own mounds, they just seemed to be so much more in control of the game and control their pitches. They were able to just get maybe a little more zip on their fastball or place it a little bit better. They were just able to feel more comfortable with the mound because that's the mound they practice on. That's the mound they throw on all year long. And there's little idiosyncrasies for pitchers a lot of the time. Maybe the mound's just has weird dirt, like their cleats dig into it a little more differently. They're very comfortable here, and it's been showing for the pitching.
Well, it's also for the other players as well. And we hit the Quinnipiac home field. Andrew Weiss hosted a catcher's tutorial with the Bobcats catcher Lou Iannotti. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Andrew Weiss here with Lou Iannotti. Going to talk a little baseball today, a little catching tutorial here. Lou, you excited?
Yes, I am. Nothing like catching.
Sounds good. Let's get started here. Nice spread day. We can throw baseball around, see what we can do.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so Lou, just take us through what it's like to receive baseball here at the home plate.
Okay. Well, it's probably the most important thing you can do as a catcher. You know, people talk about guys who throw people out and stuff like that, but realistically, only 2 or 3 guys are going to go a game, and that's a lot. But there are hundreds, hopefully less than 200 pitches thrown in a game. So your ability to catch strikes and keep them as strikes is huge, because the difference in counts changes the course of a game, right? You know, if I catch a ball that's close and I make it look like a ball, it's 1-0 as opposed to 0-1, right? Which changes the whole course of an at-bat. So what we like to do is we like to be in between of like going out to get the pitch and like letting it get too deep on you. Ideally, you want to catch it with a bent arm because you have more leverage that way. If my arm was straight, you'd be able to just push it right away from me. So your arm wants to have like a slight bend in it, so that way you're strong wherever the pitch is. Usually on an inside pitch, you're going to catch it a little bit more out in front because you want to beat it there. Because if I catch it back here, especially with somebody like Thomas Jenkins or Alex Vargas who are throwing over 90 miles an hour, you know, you're either going to break your thumb or it's just going to take the glove right away, right out of your hands. So with an inside pitch, you really want to kind of catch it out this way, and you want to stop it almost. You don't want to go out and get it, you just want to stop it wherever you catch it, right? So that way you can present it to the umpire so it looks good. Away pitches, you're not going to catch it out in front as much. You're going to kind of catch it a little bit back here. The hardest pitch to receive is the low pitch. People teach it all different ways. What we like to do is turn our glove up and in, because what it allows is if the pitch comes in, I just let it hit the bottom of my glove, it'll actually just turn my glove up automatically without me doing anything. So if I catch a pitch like this, or if I catch a pitch like this looks a lot better to the umpire than if I caught it like this. So it's pretty difficult, especially when somebody's throwing a little bit harder, because, you know, it could hurt your thumb, or you could just kind of catch it and hit it down. So the low pitch is definitely the hardest pitch to receive in baseball, but it changes the course of a game. Like I said, you know, the more pitches you can catch, present as strikes, you're gonna even get guys striking out who, in other words, shouldn't have struck out because it was a ball, but you made it look good enough that it's strike 3. So, I mean, that could get you out of a huge situation.
All right. And you talked about those low pitches.
Yeah.
So every now and then I'm sure, you know, a pitcher might make a mistake and it'll bounce up on you. How do you go about blocking those pitches, making sure it doesn't get behind you, making sure the base runners aren't getting too far?
Right. Well, usually the situations where you're most prepared for a ball in the dirt is a count where there's 2 strikes, or if there's somebody on base. So if there's nobody on base, you know, or less than 2 strikes, you're pretty relaxed in your stance. You're pretty, you're sitting back. You're more comfortable, kind of like this. And then with somebody on or 2 strikes, you're usually up a little bit more. So you're kind of like this, just expecting a ball to be in the dirt. Because with 2 strikes, you got to be able to block it, keep it in front to get the guy at first. And with somebody on, you don't obviously want them to advance another base. So with blocking, the first thing we like to do is get our glove out. you don't want to fall backwards. So it's the same idea with receiving a pitch, with having that middle ground of where you want to stop the ball. You don't want to go out and get it too far, but you don't want to go backwards. Because if I go down to block this pitch right here and I go forward, it's pretty close to my body, right? But if I go in the same spot and I kick my legs back, there's a significant amount of room compared to the first one. So all that room right there, the ball could go in any direction. So we like to go out and get it, like I said, with our glove, and you really like punch your hips forward, right? So once you get forward, you're over the ball with your chest. That way when the ball bounces up, it stays in front of you. Because if I go like this, it could deflect anyway, right? So the idea is you want to keep it almost in like a semicircle right in front of home plate. That way if a ball is in the dirt, the runner doesn't go. Because if they do go, it's very difficult to get somebody out, especially if they make...
For an extended version of that catching tutorial, check it out on our website at q30television.com. We're going to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, we are going to look back at some of the teams from the winter and fall seasons, see where they can progress for in the future. We're going to start with the men's and women's ice hockey teams. Stay with us.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Qcash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. It was a historic season for both of the Quinnipiac hockey teams. The men's team made it back to the Frozen Four after doing so for the first time in program history just 4 years ago. The women's team won its first conference regular season and tournament championships and made its second straight NCAA appearance. But both teams are losing very important players heading into next season. Let's start with the men's team. Rob, the Bobcats not only losing its seniors, but two other players, huge players as well. How do you see the Bobcats compensating for the loss of players like Sam Annis, Devon Taves, who are foregoing their fourth year of eligibility, and seniors like St. Dennis, Soren Janssen, and of course goaltender Michael Gartic?
Well, we'll start with the two players that are foregoing their fourth season of eligibility. I mean, it was sort of expected with Annis and Taves. Taves was already a draft pick. We expected this to happen. And the thing is, Rand Pecknold is building a program similar to what Jerry York and Jack Parker built in the Hockey East. And he's going to have to expect this for years to come, that he's not going to have a lot of his players stay for the full 4 years of their eligibility. But what this means is that he has to adapt. It might be a bit of a struggle for them next season, but they are bringing in a lot of freshmen. They have 12 freshmen coming in, plus they still have the two transfers from this year in Kevin Duane and Chris Truel. You know, it's just going to be up to these key players that are still staying to step up. The likes of Chase Prisky. You also have Luke Shiplow, who didn't play often this season, but he had some really incredible games in the games that he did play in. So you got to look at some of these younger players to mature a little more quicker and to step up. I think that's what has to happen with this team. And then obviously look at the remaining seniors who will stay for their fourth year of eligibility, including the Clifton brothers and Derek Smith.
Yeah, once Devon Taves was drafted after his freshman year in the 4th round, you could kind of tell that at some point he was going to be leaving early. With Sam Ass, a lot of people were saying, oh, well, that's a surprise. But then when he tweeted out, I'm happy to be moving on to being a professional hockey player and to get my degree this fall, he was a whole year ahead in credits. Why would he stay here if he's getting NHL offers now just to play next year when he doesn't have to take any classes because he'll already have a degree? For him, the best move was to move on. But it does leave a big hole offensively for Quinnipiac because in addition, they're losing Travis St. Dennis, who has played only 1 game away from playing the most games played in program history as a forward, only player to play in both of play minutes in both of those national championship game appearances. So that's a huge loss for them. I think that he has been one of the more under the radar players, but one of the more consistent, productive players for the team throughout his entire career here. And then obviously losing Michael Gartig. So let's move on to it. With Michael Gartig going out, we have Sean Lawrence, who is now going into his junior year, been with the team, practicing with the team now over the course of the last couple of years. We've seen him play in some games, but we also have Chris Truhl, as we mentioned, the transfer from Air Force, who just finished sitting out his transfer year and will be eligible to play next year. Who do you think is going to be able to win out that job?
I think it's going to be tough for Rand Pecknell to decide that and evaluate these 2 goalies, but I think it really just depends on the beginning of the season. I think it's going to be Sean Lawrence just because he's got 2 years of experience, not necessarily a lot of playing time in actual games. He only played in started 1 game this season. That was the UConn game back, I think, in November. He got pulled after the first period. It was a rough start for him, but he does have the experience with practicing with this team for 2 years. Chris Truhl had to sit out the year. He's coming from a lesser division, for lack of a better term, in the Atlantic from Air Force. Granted, still a good program that usually makes the NCAA tournament, but I think it's going to be Sean Lawrence at the very least to start the season, just because he's been training with the Bobcats goaltending coaches. He's been practicing with this team for 2 years now. He knows the team. He knows the division, or the conference, excuse me. I think it's Sean Lawrence's job right now.
I think that Chris Truhl is going to win it out. I think that's going to be kind of a platoon situation between the 2 of them sharing games, probably up until around like the beginning of December. But I ultimately think Chris Truhl is going to win it out. He was in his after his freshman year at Air Force. He was all Atlantic rookie team, playing in Atlantic hockey with Air Force. He had a lot of appearances there. Had a really decent sophomore season there, about 500 over the course of the 2 years. So he's had a very interesting transition, but he is also going to get a chance to work with those goalie coaches. He's going to get a chance to maybe do what Michael Gartig did and stay and work with Valquette during the summer. Valquette, who Rangers fans probably know from working with MSG, former NHL goaltender, working with the goalies in the summers. So I personally think that Chris Truhl is going to ultimately win out, but it's going to definitely be an open competition for the job, and Rand Pecknell probably will not shy away from that.
All right, moving back out of the crease, who's like 1 or 2 players for next season that need to step up now with the loss of so many seniors plus Annis and Taze?
I think that Tommy Shutt's definitely going to get a bigger role, just named as an assistant captain next year. He's going to have to step up next year and kind of take on that leadership role that he is now, his teammates just voted for him to have. So, and filling his role kind of in the bottom lines, I think Brian Shribman just had a very kind of injury-plagued year this year. He's going to make a little bit of a comeback, showed a lot of promise early on in his freshman and sophomore year. I think he's going to get back to form to fulfill Shutt's spot in the bottom of the rotation.
It's interesting you say Shutt. I actually think it's going to be Tim Clifton. After the year he had and the fact that he's staying on for his senior year with his brother, I think it's going to be a big year for both the Clifton brothers, but for Tim specifically, after the year he had, he's got to look to, match that again next year. You're losing so much. It's going to be tough to make, return to the NCAA tournament again. I'm sure, the Bobcats definitely could do it, but it's going to be up to him, to have the year he had, make the plays, and still be as physical as he usually is, and be the player that he was this season. So I think it's certainly I think more of the weight's going to go on Tim Clifton's shoulders. But let's move on. Moving over to the women's hockey team. They're losing a senior class of 6 players. 3 of those players are defenders that have pretty much been the foundation of this team since they came in 4 years ago. Of the returning players, James, who do you think needs to take on a bigger role for the women's hockey team?
I think TT Cianfrano needs to take control of leading this team. When she came in, she was the highest touted recruit coming in to college in her freshman class. She has clearly shown that she can produce very well and at a very high level at the collegiate ranks. So heading into her junior season, she needs to just take control of this team. She is now their main offensive force. She's going to be working alongside Melissa Samaskevich as well, but I think Ciambra needs to take on a big voice in that locker room and really control, say, this is my team, hop on my back, I will take you to where you guys need to go.
100% agree with you on that. I think it's definitely Ciambra. Yes, Emma Woods is the captain this year, and yes, she's also an offensive force, but Ciambra from day one has been getting points left and right. Just an incredible player, one of the highest caliber players since Kelly Babstock to come into this program. She is certainly coming into her third year, junior year. You know, she could see herself with a letter on her jersey. You know, if not next season with an A, you know, the season after her senior season, she needs to start taking on a leadership role with this team. You know, she's already got the stats to back it up, but to be a force in the locker room as well would be key for this team. And, you know, she's, like I said, we've been saying she's led this team her first 2 seasons, and she has to continue doing that for these next 2.
Yeah, and for that one, I think both of us very much in agreement. That's a pretty clear-cut one. And we're still going strong here on our final episode of Bobcat Breakdown and still have lots to cover. After the break, we'll take a look at the women's basketball team and what they can do to continue the success they've had.
And we'll also discuss the rugby team as it heads into the offseason to prepare to defend its national championship.
Don't leave your seat. We'll be right back.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
Freshmen this year have stepped in and really just eliminated that problem, doing the right plays at the right time.
I mean, it certainly seems like an uphill battle for this team, but Tricia Fabi is one of the best coaches at this university.
Bobcats hosting Arizona State. We'll start with this power play.
But she's strong. Good Lord, I saw her lifting one time. She could squat 3 of me. Like,
oh, well, 7 of me then.
And welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown.
The Quinnipiac women's basketball team made an incredible run to the MAAC tournament this past season, riding a 19-game winning streak into the championship game where it fell to Iona. The Bobcats season didn't end there, though, as they hosted 2 WNIT games here in Hamden, defeating Maine and losing to Temple. James, the Bobcats lost Maria Napolitano to injury in the MAAC tournament, and it showed how much they missed her out on the court. With her graduating, how do the Bobcats replace her next season?
Well, you saw right around when they kind of found themselves earlier this year was when they started transitioning kind of from the team that just chuck up as many shots as you can from the outside and however many fall, they fall. And it's just run and gun, just outshoot the other team. It's just a real back and forth. To when they started going down inside, running things through Erin McClure, the freshman. She's going to be going into her sophomore year. She had a monster year this year in MAAC play. So I expect her to once again be the forerunner for that offense. Maria Napolitano's game was more kind of geared towards that outside presence, getting open to get the kick out for that corner 3. That was her game. But I think where they're going to hurt her, hurt from missing her most is the leadership quality. She had an insane leadership quality on this team. She was one of very few upperclassmen on this team, and she commanded a presence in the huddle.
See, that's where I want to jump in. I think it's the leadership quality that's the main thing that they're going to miss about her. I think that's going to come. That's going to fall on the shoulders of one of the returning players, like Adelie Martucci. She's a redshirt junior. She's going to, she's coming back for next season. I think that's going to fall mainly on her because she's been here for 4 years, or for 4 years now. She knows this team so well. I think the locker room and the huddle are all hers. It's going to fall on her. She showed this year her skills on the court as well. You know, she could hit that outside three a few times when needed. She's coming clutch with some shots towards the end of some of these games. You know, I think a lot of it is going to fall on her.
Yeah, and looking past Napolitano, the Bobcats had 4 freshmen and 4 sophomores this past season and are a young team. How do you think that will affect them over the next few seasons?
I think it's just good because they could build over time. Trish Fabry can build her squad, you know, from the ground up. You got a young squad that learns over the course of their 4 years. You got mainly young players. It certainly would be devastating. It's going to be devastating, you know, losing 4 players each season, you know, in a couple of years, you know, at the end of each season in a couple of years. But certainly she's building a good foundation for this program. I think starting young, you know, having a lot of freshmen come in, you know, getting them into the system early and often, having them train. You know, if you're a player that maybe doesn't get a lot of playing time in your freshman year, but you're still practicing the system so you're ready for your sophomore, junior, and senior seasons, excuse me. You know, I think it's good.
I think that Trish Fabry has shown that she has a pattern with this. If you looked at last year's senior class as well, all of them came in as freshmen and immediately had to take on big roles because they were in a very underclassmen-laden team as well. By the time that they were all juniors and seniors, they'd been playing together for 4 years, playing starting minutes in conference play, went undefeated in the NEC, and then when they moved over to the MAAC, made it to the MAAC championship game, lost, but then got right back and won it the next year. And so you can definitely see that this is kind of Trish Fabry's plan. Recruit for every 4 years down the line, and then just ride or die with that group. And if they struggle early on, they struggle early on. And that's just the way it is. They clearly did not struggle early on, and I think that they're just going to continue to build on it going forward. But let's move on over now. The women's rugby team had an incredible season, winning 11 games and just losing 2, and went on to win the NCVWRA championship with a 24-19 win over Army last fall. The Bobcats women's rugby squad is the first national champion in Quinnipiac's athletic history. The Bobcats also won 3 tournaments this spring: the Harvard Sevens, the Quinnipiac Sevens, and the Sorensen Cup. So, Rob, it seems like this team is on a roll, and even a brief winter break didn't really stop them. What do you expect to see from them when they get back into that championship season in the fall and continuing to see them in the spring season?
They're only losing 2 seniors, so they're returning a lot of their key players, including players like Emily Roskopf, Flora Poole. I think this is going to be a big fall for them where they're going to find a lot of success once again. Becky Carlson's squad was just showing off in almost every single game this season how strong they are and how skilled they are. And she has built quite a team here, and, you know, losing only 2 seniors, that's not a bad place to be in at all, especially after winning a national championship. They're looking good for next season.
Oh, yeah, and you can definitely tell they've built a program that players want to come to. Alona Marr this year came in, was a big key contributor right away because she was a big key contributor on Norwich, who won the national championship when she was on their team as a freshman. They are attracting players, even from other big programs, who were key players to come here because they can see what they're building. And Becky Carlson's kind of formula of get all the big hitters, and then to fill out the roster, just look for good athletes. The number of players who use up all 4 years of eligibility in other sports and then use that 1 year of eligibility you can get when you switch to another sport that she just takes from other Quinnipiac players, because we have the 5-year health science program, and a lot of players would just be sitting around after they use up their 4 years of eligibility for like McKeever did with soccer. Took McKeever, made her kick conversions for them, became a key contributor on that team. I think that philosophy has worked very well and created a very tight-knit family environment for this team. I expect them to keep going on a roll and continuing to just build this aura around this program that people are going to want to, other players and recruits are going to come to. They're set for a while. And who are some of the key players do you expect to be a factor for them as they continue to defend their title?
Well, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, Emily Roskopf. Incredible season for her. You know, she just proved how good of a rugby player she is. She went out and got so many points for the Bobcats. It seemed like every week we were mentioning her name, you know, on the broadcasts, in the game recaps, on this show. It was continually her name coming up for this team. You know, she's taken on a leadership role early on, you know, in her time here. She's definitely going to have you would assume that she could have such an incredible season after this year, so that she's going to do that once again next season. So I definitely see her stepping up as one of the key players and certainly going to play a huge role as they look to defend their national championship.
Well, there's so many different players that you can talk about. You can talk about Roscoe, you can talk about Marr, as I already did. You can also talk about Flora Poole, as you mentioned earlier on. But I want to go with Maggie Miles, because even if her production has kind of gone down, her production's gone down a little bit because there's more to give around. They're able to spread the ball out more, get back to that end zone, get a lot of tries, and just blow teams out. And she kind of is the facilitator of a lot of that, and she's also a leader as the longest tenured person here. Now let's move a little farther back, also again to fall sports, onto the women's soccer team. The Bobcats finished 8-8-1 overall and 4-5-1 the MAAC, narrowly missing out on making the MAAC tournament in the final game of the regular season. But Rob, the Bobcats greatly improved last year compared to the 2014 season when they only won 3 games. Have they found the perfect mix of players on the offensive side of the ball?
I would say so. It looks like they have. As you mentioned, it was a great improvement from the 2014 season. We saw a lot of good things this season. Certainly, I think with the way Dave Clark was sort of building up this program, we sort of saw these next couple years, maybe as rebuilding years, but it looks like he's ahead. I mean, finishing pretty much 500 last season. It's looking even better for next year. We got Jess Gargan, the year she had, looking like a breakout year this past year. You can only imagine what she'll do for this team next year.
Yeah, and then Nadia Gill as well had a huge season for them. Seemed like she was scoring every other week, or every big goal that needed to be had, she was there, crashing that far post for the cross coming in. I think that by focusing on getting in a lot of really good offensive talented recruits has allowed Jess Fontaine to become more of the facilitator, less kind of pressure on her just to produce everything. It was her and then Jessica Jankowski for a while. Jessica Jankowski got hurt in the middle of last year, and they still continued to produce. So they are well ahead of schedule, and it has been a very interesting year. Next year is not going to be a narrow miss in the playoffs. They are going to make the playoffs, and they are going to make a little bit of a run in the playoffs. They just have made enough improvements to get there.
Well, I need you to be a little more specific. Given these improvements we saw this past year, how far do you think they'll go next season?
They could probably win a round. It's still going to be a step-by-step process. They are losing some defensive players. They're losing Grodzki and net. I personally don't think that unless you go to like the national and international ranks, the goalie can make a difference for me in women's soccer. Otherwise, they're all kind of around the same level of ability. But if you get someone out there who really doesn't know what they're doing as the replacement, then they become a detriment. So that's going to be interesting to see.
I agree with you, in a sense there, but I think they could go farther. I think they could go as far as the MAAC semifinals, maybe even the championship game. With what we've seen this season, this team, sort of stays on the path of improvement that we've seen. Could see an even a bigger improvement next season. Making it not only making the MAAC tournament, but making it as far as the semifinal and championship game.
Yeah, a lot of programs have been building things here, as we just mentioned. But on the other side of our final commercial break, Rob and I are going to discuss the teams to watch for in each season for next year.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more on Bobcat Breakdown.
The freshmen this year have stepped in and really just eliminated that problem, doing the right plays at the right time.
I mean, it certainly seems like an uphill battle for this team, but Tricia Fabi is one of the best coaches at this university.
The Bobcats hosting Arizona State. We'll start with this power play.
But she's strong. Good Lord, I saw her lifting one time. She could squat 3 of me. Like,
oh, well, 7 of me then.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown.
It's our final block of the final show of the year, and we're changing things up a bit.
That's right, James. Instead of the usual games to watch for, we're going to pick one team from the spring season to keep an eye on as their season winds down, as well as a team from the fall and a team from the winter to keep an eye on for next season. James, since you're one of the beautiful executive producers of this show, and I am but one of your lowly associate producers, why don't you go first?
Well, for the spring season, watch out for the men's lax team. We talked about them earlier on in this show. They have a bid to go next weekend undefeated in the MAAC. Heading into the tournament, they just clinched to host. I mentioned earlier, I think hosting is everything to this team because Marist has really kind of hurt them when they've had to travel there. When they had to go there earlier this season, they came away with a win, but it took double overtime. They lost there in the MAAC championship last year. By getting home field advantage is really going to secure a huge advantage for them. Who do you think is going to, everyone needs to look out for the spring?
Well, I like your pick of men's lax, but I have to say the women's golf team won the MAAC championship this past weekend, headed out to Texas for the NCAA tournament, first time. And I think they are riding a very hot streak. I think they could do very well in the MAAC tournament, and I think they are the team you got to keep an eye out for. You know, they've just been doing so well.
Yeah, they have a couple of really talented freshmen. We were able to speak, our Reagan Martin, you saw, was able to speak to Lou Iannotti earlier on in the show. They have a really good, solid freshman class that really kind of propelled them in that MAAC tournament last year. They kind of ran away with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Down the back nine.
Definitely. Well, what about your fall team? What team from the fall should we look out for next season?
Well, looking at the next fall, I'm going to stick with kind of the obvious choice, rugby. Rugby is been basically just on a tear. You can even see it in their spring season now. Rugby is a dual season sport, but people mainly think of them as a fall sport. And the fall championship is the big championship. So I think that that is, for me, where people should focus their efforts. We just talked about them just last segment. There's so many different people who can score for them and score at will. And that just makes them a very exciting team to watch. And they hit hard.
Well, I'm going to say field hockey. I don't necessarily disagree with your choice, but I think field hockey is a bit more of a team you got to pay attention to. They're making a jump into a new conference, into the Big East. You know, after just a few short years in the MAAC that they found so much success, I think it's going to be interesting to see how well this team adjusts to a new conference. You know, this is a team that we've seen so much success from. Becca Mann has just done so well coaching this program. So it'd be interesting to see how see what she could do with this team as they, like I said, they're jumping into the Big East. It's a big jump for them. You know, I want to see how they adjust to it and if they could find success early on.
Yeah, and that was a very bold move by new athletic director, Greg Amodio. That definitely seems to be something he's kind of putting as a area of emphasis to try and get the teams into bigger conferences at his tenure here at Quinnipiac. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how they adjust. Moving on to the winter sports. Of the Big Four winter sports, who do you think that everyone should have an eye out for next year?
Women's hockey. And I'll tell you why. They're losing their key defenders, sure, but they're still returning Sydney Rossman in goal, TT Cianfrano, Emma Woods, and company on offense. It is going to be a lot. I think we're going to see a lot of scoring out of this team next season. The defense is going to need to step up of the returning defenders, but I don't think that's going to be as big of an issue this year because I think Rossman did prove herself in goal in some of these tight games, especially those last two games this season. They won the ECAC championship, a 1-0 game against Clarkson, then just a quick shot 10 seconds in, a week later in the NCAA tournament, a 1-0 loss. Rossman has proved she can make key saves. She doesn't need the greatest defense forever. I think the Bobcats, I'm not saying afford to make her make a bunch of key saves in the games, but as long as it's close to what it has been, I think they're going to be very successful again, make a return to the ECAC championship game and the NCAA tournament.
And while they are losing a lot, so are a lot of the other teams in the conference. So basically, they're right on par to kind of do what they did this year for next year. So I like that pick. I'm going to go with women's basketball because they do, as opposed to losing people and being on par with other teams, I feel that they are on kind of set to go on a tear. Just kind of run through, maybe have another one of those undefeated seasons that Tricia Fabry has had in conference play in recent years with that last group of seniors who graduated. They picked up the torch and they picked it up very quickly, this group. And so I expect to see them be able to just continue that. We talked about them. Erin McClure, Paula Stratmanet have really established themselves as the keys to this team. Erin McClure as the presence down low, Stratmanet as the one kind of stretching the floor, stretching defenses out to create that space for McClure as the player who can both get inside and produce while also still being able to be an outside presence. So there's a lot that they have there.
Well, that's an interesting choice. Unfortunately, that will just about do it here for us. Be sure to check out our past shows and other great coverage of Quinnipiac athletics at theqbsn.com and at q30television.com.
And be sure to follow us on Twitter at Q30Sports and at QBSN, and of course at Bobcat Breakdown. Check out the latest edition of the QBSN magazine and be on the lookout for the final edition of this year, which will be available soon.
From everyone on the Breakdown crew, thanks for watching all year long. Thanks to the people helping out behind the scenes too. Aside from James and myself, the rest of the Breakdown crew, we'll see you again next year. Thanks for watching.